said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. The childlikeness of this dialogue, and the ease with which our first parents fell into the transgression of the only commandment which had been given them, indicate the untested nature of their virtue. Everything had been given them by God's grace, but they were not yet skilled in tilling and keeping their inward state. Gods and sons of the Most High. Temptation offered by the devil contains the same elements we fallen men know in our own fight against sin. He offers first of all not an obvious evil, but something which seems good and true. Men were indeed created to be gods and sons of the Most High, as it says in the Psalms, and were aware that from paradise they were to ascend to a higher condition. The devil, therefore, as it were, thought to himself, as St. Ambrose expresses it, quote, This, therefore, is my first approach, namely to deceive him while he is desirous of improving his condition. In this way an attempt will be made to arouse his ambition. Unquote. In causing our first ancestors to look at the good thing of becoming like gods, the devil hoped to cause them to forget the small commandment, which was the way God ordained them to achieve this goal. Men were indeed created to be gods and sons of the Most High.
As we approach death, many people will panic. It is a panic because no matter how much we may convince ourselves or believe that there is no God, the soul recognizes that it must leave the body. The soul understands that it is about to enter eternity, that it must face God. Of this world, we deny God, we reject God, we turn away from God, and at death We face one we have not known. But in his love, this King, this God, continues to pour out to us the gifts, the tools, the weapons necessary. We may enter into God's eternal kingdom. That we may enter into God's eternal kingdom. He constantly reaches out to us to draw us back to Him. The choice is ours. Here we are in this world for a brief moment. The trees around me will still be here when I've died. This world will go on long after our death. But we enter through the door of death into eternity. Do we enter to meet the King we know, that we've grown to love and trust? Or do we enter eternity facing judgment from a stranger?
said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, You shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, guys and gals, boys and girls. It has been a long hiatus. I am back in the captain's seat here at the head commander station, ready to do some more streams. It's exciting to be back in the icon corner. I've been gone for 11, 12 days. Took a little trip to California for my good buddy, Dr. Michael Mohler's baptism. Congratulations to Michael Mohler. He is now an official Orthodox, Orthodox man, Orthodox communicant. So, congratulations to him, and it was a pleasure. Just a quick shout out to the Orthodox logos, Ian, Schema Beats. Thank you for the music today. It was a pleasure to meet you, brother. You and your beautiful wife and your beautiful son at, of course, the one and only St. Andrew's Orthodox Church in Riverside, California. So that was amazing. I ended up showing up at the conference there, right towards the end of my trip, and I didn't plan on going. I had a flight at almost 11 o'clock at night, and ended up going to Riverside, and I met Ian and his wife. So it was great. It was great. Met so many people at my time out in California. So thank you, everybody, very, very much for the gracious trip. Okay. So what is it that I want to talk about today? Well, some of you probably already picked up on it based on the title. I want to talk to you guys about Betatheism, superheroes, and the 21st century Pagan Pantheon. Now, that's a bit of a mouthful, but the premise for today was me thinking about ultimate value structures and what is the heroic figures that men are looking up to in contemporary society. And when we look at ancient societies, they're typically religious figures. It could have been, a goddess, a god. It could have been Hercules. Of course, we as Christians understand Christ as the ultimate heroic figure and his life as an archetype of what it means to be a hero. And so I think it's a real interesting analysis to look at American culture, American society, and the absence of, the lessening of Christian values, Christianity in our society, and then in turn the rise of superhero worship. And that when we start to look at these superhero movies, which are, they're now 20% of the movie industry. They were less than 1% just 20 years ago. And now all of a sudden, they're almost a fourth of the industry. What's going on here? Well, I think it's really interesting to begin to think about superheroes as entities in a sort of alternative universe, of which the Marvel universe, the DC universe, whatever these comic universes are. They're trying to get us to, in a way, move into these universes conceptually. And so we begin to identify new heroes, new gods, in a sense. And I got a video of a guy watching Star Wars breaking down in tears, just awestruck by Star Wars, a trailer for it. And we see, I think it's tied to the betaization of men. That it is the sort of beta-theism, polytheism, the new polytheism, the new pagan pantheon of the Hollywood superheroes, and how we understand, the bossy lady that's walking around and she's dominating, 200-pound, 300-pound muscular men, and she's like 115. But we see now, more recently, with the DC and the Marvel superheroes, the political infusion of the values, for the LGBTQ emphasis, the feminism. And so we're seeing then a pantheon, and I'm going to lay this out here in my opening monologue, but pagan pantheons, all pantheons, historically speaking, are mythological structures, narrative structures of entities of which then collectivize those people. So Greek mythology, Nordic mythology, Germanic mythology, whatever it is, they collectivize those individuals into a group that then have a feedback. It's called a sacred canopy. I've talked about this with you guys multiple times. A sociologist named Peter Berger developed the concept of the sacred canopy. And this is a theory of how culture begins and how we sort of form the sacred canopy, the thing that we look up to, of our highest ideals, of our transcendental values. And that these superheroes really are modern day pagan gods. And that you look at then the people who become obsessed, and I'm sorry, no shots fired here for anybody who really likes some of the superhero movies. I know they do a great job with sort of the cinematic features of it, the amount of money that goes into their production. So no qualms there. And even if you're interested in watching them, no qualms. But I think the absolute growth and popularity within a 20-year period, and then we look at the change in values in our society. Again, the pedophilia, the normalization of pedophilia, minor attracted individuals, minor attracted adults, the LGBTQ, the homosexuality, the sexual perversion, the collectivistic ideologies, whether it be communism or all this stuff. Interestingly, I think we see the dramatic rise in American culture on parallel with the dramatic rise of these comic book superheroes that, back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, Batman still existed. It was nowhere near prevalent to the level it is today. Why is that? Could it be tied to the Christian values, the traditional values actually separated or prevented? There's a sort of small buffer to over-venerating, over-valorizing Marvel superheroes, DC superheroes, whatever it be. And so as that buffer has waned, that buffer is gone, I think a lot of men now are looking for heroism through the superheroes, which then exist in these universes that already are collectivistic, LGBTQ plus, in favor of all these different, feminism, that these Marvel universes, these DC universes, the Avengers, they're all getting men to create feedback loops of valorization for heroism that then exist in those universes. So their concept of progress is where we're at in 2022. We're going to move towards that. We can look at Star Wars, for example, how, the moon landing changed the way we saw space. And so then Lucas's film and Star Wars, it placed a spot within people that thought this is the future, right? This is a mythological, this is a Hollywood narrative, but it's where we're going, right? The space adventure. And yet now, that was in the 70s. Look at where we're at in 2022. And are we really that more advanced? Are we really that more progressed? I would say no. So I want to begin by saying that naturally, men seek stories and myths defining heroism. Really, when we get down to it, that's one of the most fundamental aspects of narrative. And we don't have to go any further than Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And I can pull that up and we can look at that a little bit in today's stream. But the hero's journey is the basis of all sort of powerful narrative structures. The hero leaves his home. He goes into a dark wilderness. He experiences a bunch of misfortunes or challenges of which he overcomes. And by overcoming them, he has a new identity, becomes a new man. And then he returns back home. And this journey is it's the redemptive journey of all hero figures. It's the hero's journey. And Joseph Campbell wrote an entire book on the hero's journey. So if you guys are more interested in that, you can look into it. But then we, as Orthodox, obviously, we worship the Logos. So we worship the source of narrative itself. We worship the second person of the Trinity, which is that which allows narrative and mythology and symbolism and semiotics and archetypes to exist in the first place. But this hero's journey, I think, is something that is fundamental to all forms of maturation of men. We don't have initiation rituals in our society like we used to, okay? And really Western society hasn't had many of them since we could talk about the Enlightenment or so on, but these sort of places, these thresholds in a man's life in which he passes through that threshold and now he's in a new stage. He's at a new place. The lack of any sort of initiation process, all men are sort of wandering into adulthood. When do I reach adulthood? Well, I'm 22 now. Well, I'm 28 now. Well, I'm 35 now. Am I an adult? Am I doing what I'm doing? What I'm supposed to be doing? And we see the absence of responsibility. We see men not having families, not pursuing, higher goals, higher higher ideals. And in a way, that is part of the sort of psychological operation that we're under to prevent us from reaching further. I mean, that's why traditional masculinity is considered toxic right now. And so superheroes are examples of contemporary heroism without the theology. And some of them are obviously pagan gods. Thor, Zeus, Loki. These are Nordic gods. These are ancient gods, Greek gods. And they're still part of these superhero pantheons, as I want to talk about. And so these superheroes are the new examples of contemporary heroism, except without the theology, without a larger transcendent value. And I think that's part of this trap, is that people have to idolize and look up to something. And you give them these Marvel movies, you give them the DC movies, you give them these superhero movies, and they then, that is the limit of their plausibility, right? And so responsibility, when we look at the hero's journey, responsibility is always the heroic action. It's always the heroic action. It doesn't matter if we look into ancient Mesopotamian myths or Greek myths or ancient Chinese myths or, Amazonian stories within tribes that we've never heard of. All the stories, every one that describes a hero is going to require him to take on responsibility on behalf of others who could take on that responsibility or don't, or just can't take on that responsibility, and they can, and so therefore they do. Obviously, when we look at a hero in regards to the taking of responsibility, there is no hero greater than Jesus Christ. He dies for the sins of the world. He dies for everything that he didn't do, in a way. Now, again, that's just one aspect of our atonement theology. But heroes, what I'm going here with, is that heroes used to be overtly religious. Christ is moving out of society. We can even point back to Nietzsche in The Death of God. He's not wrong. Nietzsche wasn't wrong when he's railing at Western Christianity, Western Catholicism, and Protestantism, and the just lack, the impetus it has. And again, in the 19th century, it was weak. It was weak-willed. And he was right to say that God is dead. The Christian God in the Western form was dead. It's not appealing to people anymore. And so what then are people then? Now they're looking for something. They need well, he gave them the Ubermensch. And even the Ubermensch, you could say, well, these superheroes, then it's just a kind of Nietzschean Ubermensch. Well, kind of, but a lot of them actually don't even match up. I mean, you look at a Bruce Wayne. Technically, he shouldn't be out there doing vigilante activity. Bruce Wayne as Batman, again, him being the sort of elite of society, he should be taking his power and crushing with his boot on the faces of the poor, on the average people, on the dregs of society. They're losers anyways. That's what an Ubermensch would do. You just elevate yourself to that status. There is no objective morality. There is no objective truth. Power is the only thing that exists in the Nietzschean Ubermensch reality. And so, at the same time, some of these superhero myths, they're not actually Nietzschean in that sense. I think Nietzsche's hitting on the death of God is very accurate because it then provides the fertile foundation for these superhero myths to really take hold in people's minds. And again, I have a video that's going to show this perfectly, within certain people. So, heroes used to be overtly religious, and now, again, 20th century, God is dead. We see comics begin really at the beginning of the 20th century. You can point to the very end of the 19th century, but really the 20th century is when they get going, these comics. And so when we look at these superhero movies, they still, in a way, have a Christian morality. That's what the only reason it appeals to people, right? Why is Batman even good? Why is Spider-Man even good? Why I don't understand. Why are these entities even worthy of idolization and valorization? Well, it's because of their selflessness. Again, these heroic actions where they take on the responsibility. They fight the villain, right, on behalf of the collective, on behalf of the group. And so this is also tied to something that I've talked about with Max Weber, sociologist Max Weber, and what he recognized with the growth of Protestant theology, he saw the disenchantment of the world. He saw the rationalization, the rationalizing process of not only Protestant theology, which is a very rationalized understanding of Christianity, basically does away with mysticism. There is no really experiential, transcendent dimension there. I mean, there's prayer, and then you have people just talking about miracles and all this stuff, but this is not a controversial thing. Generally speaking, everybody would agree that Protestantism is a much more rationalized form of Christianity. And Max Weber is seeing this happen in the industrial Germanic time, again, in the 19th century. So Germany's they're going through their industrial revolution, and he's watching how this is affecting people. And he believed that these spheres of rationalization in society, whether it be industry or business or sports or all these things would take on their own spheres of rationality, and in a way it disenchants the world. There is no overly shared mythology anymore. That rationalization is a sort of the overshared mythology, and in so doing, it's disenchanting the world. And during that time, we saw the rise in magic as a sort of response to the disenchantment of the rationalizing process of the post-Enlightenment project. And so we see the death of God, 19th century, the death of God, Nietzsche, and we see Max Weber talking about the disenchantment of the world. I think this is essential for seeing how Christianity wanes out of Western society, slowly but surely, and there's no question that it has. And what's replaced it then is literally a sort of paganism. We see the paganism in the global climate change narrative. We see the paganism as really a sort of a very dominant strand of presuppositional theology for a lot of people. You ask your average New Ager, you ask your average person out there, and you start reframing questions in a sort of pagan context or talking about nature or nature spirits, I think we'd be surprised how many people really do have more of a pagan worldview. They may still adopt the Christian morality. Nobody wants to give up the Christian morality for some reason, but they definitely want to give up then the Christian responsibility and the Christian religion and the Christian worldview. But this has set a fertile ground for, again, a new pantheon. That's what these superhero movies are. That's what Hollywood is. You see, it's literally providing us pagan gods. The values of paganism are coming back. Human sacrifice, abortion, orgiastic activity, the multiplicity of sexual identities, pedophilia, the worship of nature, veganism. We see ancient forms of paganism coming back in the contemporary society as hip, as progressive, as cool. And this is moving us into, again, a world, as I talked about how Christ civilized the world, a world before Christ. And I think that these superhero movies are actually contributing to this because they literally are providing the sort of sacred canopy for the new pagan world. And so then you see the LGBTQ, the feminism, all this stuff in the pagan Marvel movies. Because those are universes, and they want you at a very subconscious level to think that you're also in that universe, and that the universe we're in is moving towards that universe if we could only just progress. If those darn people would just take their stabbies and wear their masks. And that's where you see it. The people who really love these movies, and I am not trying to castigate or point fingers. There's always exceptions to every rule, but many of them are very beta. Many of these men are in their 30s or their 20s. Comics, when they came out, were for kids. And I got a quote here, and we're going to look at it once we start getting into some of the evidence, of Alan Moore, the great comic artist, the magician, saying comics are for children, that this has been detrimental on society, that comics and superheroes are objects of attention for adults and adult men. Now, the author takes umbrage with this. He prefers comics and how great comics are. But when comics came out, you were considered illiterate if you're into comics and you didn't read actual books. And now we look at the literacy rates of our society declining rapidly. And we see comics also rise. And I'm not saying that all comics are bad. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just at a 12,000 foot. I'm a very abstract aerial view of this stuff. So there's always nuances in this discussion. But I think that it's a neotenizing effect. Neoteny is a scientific term for the retention of juvenile characteristics into adulthood. That's why I call this betatheism, polytheism. Betatheism is becoming the man that venerates the pagan idols that Hollywood's giving you. You will become a beta. Because it's all about you like having hedonistic emotional responses, but not taking responsibility. As we said in the beginning, look at Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. Every hero is tied to taking responsibility for something. Responsibility outside the capacity of which you might think he has. That's the point. But then the people who are watching these Hollywood movies, who are enamored with this whole Star Wars and Star Trek and Marvel versus DC, are in their actual lives. Is the heroes that they look up to being enacted in their life? Well, yeah, John Doe over there, he bought an Iron Man suit and he goes to Comic-Con. No, dude, that's not responsibility. Are you married? Do you have children? Do you have a career? Do you have a skill? Do you have a passion for something? Are you reaching beyond the limits that are capable right now? If you're not, then you're not actually being a man. That's the whole point. We're on a progress, and that's also carrying your cross. That is maturation. That is becoming mature. That is becoming a man. And so we see then the lack of initiation rituals, the lack of initiation in our society, and then the inundation with the pagan values, and now venerating these Hollywood figures on the big screen. What is going on here? And so as Christianity's influence on culture lessens, the appeal of superheroes increase. And again, I have an article that I'll show you guys. And within a 20-year period, superhero movies have gained over 19% of all Hollywood productions. It was like at the beginning of 2000, there was like, it was less than 1%. Less than 1% of Hollywood movies had anything to do with superheroes. Now it's over 20%. Well, what's going on? I argue that superhero movies are part of a betatization process. And so then even the superheroes themselves aren't as cool and masculine as they used to be. I mean, you look at a lot of the actors who play these superhero roles, and they're skinny, they're scrawny, they're little dudes. They don't have masculine auras, masculine presences, really out there doing their thing, You just look at the 80s superheroes. Look at Arnold and Sylvester Stallone and Jean-Claude Van Damme, and then look at the people today. And you're like, oh, how come none of the guys who play superheroes anymore really have that big of muscles? What's going on? Because it's the redefining of masculinity. It's the redefining of heroism. It's reconfiguring heroes. And I think this is part of, I would argue, an occult process. That all these comic entities, and many of them are based on pagan gods themselves, overtly or, subtly, Hollywood is magically, through an occultic practice, taking two-dimensional figures in comics and creating, in a way, like three-dimensional big screen entities. They're taking comic book heroes through the big screen, through Hollywood. They're literally animating them as real entities to be valorized. And I think there's this really interesting rational component here, because when you look at some of the differences between the DC and the Marvel is like how the superheroes relate to actually living in the same world that we live in. So I'm not an expert on these topics, but from my understanding, Marvel Comics, one of the interesting takes that it does is that all the superheroes exist in a sort of human world, and they live amongst humans. And that's part of, like, again, this rationalized process. It's a false form of Christ, right? Because that's what these superheroes are. Marvel, the superhero has transcendent value. He's kind of just like you. He's kind of like a man. Or the X-Men. Like, they're kind of like mutants, but they're kind of like you. And it's all just a sort of false version of Christ. It distorted. It doesn't even come close to equating to Christ. In the totality of heroism, the totality of its message and its meaning. And so Hollywood is literally creating, in my opinion, a new pagan pantheon, a sacred canopy, so that those people who then watch those movies and venerate those entities, they become part of a collectivized process. And therefore, I would argue, if you began to just do numbers on the people who take all these superhero movies seriously, who go, they buy the t-shirts, they buy the comics, they do all this stuff, and then you took their political values, I guarantee you the majority of them would be left of center. I guarantee you the majority of them would be in favor of a lot of the degeneracy that we as traditional Christians take umbrage with. We'll put it that way. And so, isn't that ironic that I bet the majority of them actually promote, when it comes to political understandings, they promote things like socialism or even openly communist. Again, what are these ideas? They're collectivistic ideologies that obfuscate personhood and unique individuality in response for, well, you're just a number. This is the Great Reset. You're not going to own anything and you're going to like it. And in a way, that process is being instituted again through a pantheon of superheroes, that people are then looking up to these superheroes and they're becoming part of a betatization process where the men are more than likely actually going to fall left of center. Because in a way, the universes that they're venerating these heroes in are not the Christian universe, because our Christian universe is the real universe, right? Christ is the real hero of the actual universe. That's why we have a metaphysical theology to account for a lot more than just, he do great thing. It's more than that. And so Hollywood is creating a new pagan pantheon to collectivize people, whether they're conscientious of it or not. They insert their political agenda in the movies to normalize these new transcendent values. So, oh my gosh, I'm awestruck by Captain America. I'm awestruck by the Hulk and Superman. Oh, and then it has the openly gay character or the transgender child in it. Wow, what a great universe. I want to live in a place like that. You see, this is a psychological tool as much as anything else. So, they're trying to normalize their values, these political values, these progressive values, the global homo agenda, through their superhero movies, which then are the place throughout all of ancient society how men come to understand masculinity and heroism. It's through heroic stories. But what is the mythological narrative of Western civilization? It's no longer Christ. What is it? It's Iron Man, it's Spider-Man, it's Batman, it's Superman, it's Black Panther. And so these new values are part of a political and a spiritual effort, because this is ultimately a spiritual reality. This is part of a spiritual effort to take meaning and responsibility away from men, because that's the only way that you can be a hero. You and I cannot be a hero as a man unless we take responsibility. Unless we move towards greater meaning in our lives. And having a bunch of Funko Pops or Star Wars memorabilia, this is not meaningful. This is neoteny. This is the maintaining of juvenile characteristics into adulthood. This is somebody who's never been initiated into being a man. This is the problem of Western civilization. This is Betatheism. That is the new polytheism. And so they are creating false universes for people so that the false notions of progress will lead them to these universes. Just like Star Wars did with this, with space travel and aliens and all this different stuff. If Star Wars and Star Trek didn't exist as television shows, how many people would still believe in UFOs and aliens? You see, this stuff is more pernicious than we think, really. These movies, these superheroes, the ways in which people are absolutely enthralled with them, it's more pernicious than we actually realize. And so I think, again, a traditional man, as I have an article and we'll read, testosterone levels are dramatically on the decrease. Dramatically on the decrease. Men aren't even as fertile as they used to be. Men can't even... if you're even with a fertile woman, you can't even have babies because your sperm's so low. You're so weak. they're not having families. I mean, they're not pursuing like longer, more meaningful goals in their lives. And that's what the world's trying to take from us. They don't want you to have children. They don't even want you to own anything. They want you to be a slave, and they want you to watch your Marvel and DC movies. And so Christian heroism is about enacting the path of Christ in our own life. That means that's a path of suffering. That means that's a path of more and more and more responsibility. And that means it's a path that's the most meaningful you could find. Taking on more responsibility, taking on more challenges. What is more meaningful? What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with it? How much time do you have left? Who knows? You want to take on responsibility. That's the difference between being a kid and an adult. It's responsibility. And yes, it is a burden. Yes, it weighs on your shoulders. But that's exactly how we grow stronger. And Christ, and that's what is meant by carrying your cross. That is the burden of adulthood, of maturation, of responsibility on your back. But this is the spiritual responsibility of trying to live your life a certain way, of trying to idolize the true hero. Again, if we are part of a Christian pantheon, a Christian worldview, God, the second person, the Logos, the metaphysical source of all unity, language, reason, logic, love, truth, came into its own creation. Eternality entered temporality as a man to show us as fallen men created in the image of God that can participate in these energies how to escape, how to follow him. His way is the truth and it leads to life. What is more heroic than that? That is a greater story than any Superman narrative. Superman can't even come close to if Jesus Christ did what the church, the Orthodox Church says he did. It literally cannot come close because Christ is the fullest. He is the Logos, so he's the source of archetypes, but he is the ultimate archetype of heroism based on all definitions. And that's why as men, then, if we actually want to be heroes, we got to follow Christ. We have to take on more suffering, more responsibility, and more meaning. And that's the only way we escape. That's the only way we change our lives. That's the only way we change society. That's the only way we build families. That's the only way women are going to respect you. And that's the only thing that Christ is ultimately wanting us to do. Bear the cross, put it on your back, and follow him. And that is very, very, very different from the Betatheism, the 21st century pagan pantheon that's provided to us by Hollywood. So, guys, smash that like. For everybody who's still here, smash that like. It's great to be back. I really, really love being back here, doing the streams again. God bless everybody. Just going to make a few quick announcements as always. Again, shout out to everybody that I met out in California. Had a great, great time. I do want to say that if you enjoy Church of the Eternal Logos and you would like to help, please become a website member. There's two options. There's a $5 a month option, of which I'll have new videos up tomorrow. I'm going to do a video on the Northmen, my take on the Northmen. That should be that'll be a members video. But if you would like, this Thursday, we are doing our premium members group. So for $25 a month, you can have access to the whole video library, but also twice a month, we get in a Zoom meeting of premium members, and we talk about anything and everything. And it's been a great, great time. So if that is something that you would be interested, if you'd like to support Church of the Eternal Logos with a $5 membership or a $25 membership, I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. And you can do so with the link that I provided there. Also, if anybody would like to sign up for a one-on-one session, you can do so with this link here. You can do 30 minutes or $50 for an hour, 30 minutes for half an hour. And we can talk about anything you want. Theology, philosophy, fitness, diet, goal setting, whatever it be. And you'll have my undivided attention. Also, I have 2 sponsored streams that are going to be coming. The first one on the Khazarian Empire, that is probably going to be a week from today. So I'll have that totally wrapped up and ready to go. But either Wednesday or Friday, I'm going to be doing a stream. Shout out to Jeffrey Ivey. Jeffrey Ivey purchased for $250, again, and anybody can do this, for $250, you can sponsor a stream and a topic and tell me what you want me to stream on. He purchased a stream topic on martyrdom, marriage versus monasticism. And so I'm going to be doing that one probably Friday, to be honest. I may do it Wednesday, but I got multiple things going on Wednesday, and then Thursdays are my one-on-one and premium members group days. So I'm going to do my best, but I'll definitely have the marriage one probably done this Friday, and then I'll have Khazaria on Sunday or Monday of next week. So that should be a lot of fun. Again, if anybody would be interested in purchasing a stream or sponsoring a stream, you can do so with the link that I provided there. So that seems to take care of all the announcements. So with that being said, let's just get into today's topic. Guys, smash that like if you can. Really would appreciate that. Let me get the window up here. There we go. Okay. All right. So before we even get into any of the articles, I want to first show you guys a video. And I know some of you have probably already seen this video going around the internet, but I think it's worth watching to encapsulate what it is that I'm trying to articulate today. So let me go right here. I'm sure some of you already seeing this know exactly what you're about to watch, but here is a little something I want to share with you guys of a gentleman who is absolutely embodying everything that I'm talking about. The betaization, the weak masculine will, the veneration of these Hollywood creations. We'll watch this, and then we're going to start diving into some articles here.
Sorry about that. I'm going to turn this puppy up. There we go. And let's do this.
Listen to his breathing. Just the breathing, let alone. You can tell this dude's badly out of shape. He's a mouth breather. And he's huffing and puffing before even watching the trailer. What?
We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. But this is your fight.
Are you guys watching this? Are you watching this?
Be able to see it through the tears. Oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, what's right, Kylo? No fucking way.
Guys, are you seeing this? This is what I'm talking about. You see how he's enraptured by the beauty of the cinema. The female with her lightsaber doing, the Dark Lord's trying to take her out with whatever machine. Again, I don't watch Star Wars, so I don't even know what he's driving there. But you see what? Do you see this? He's literally in tears. He's lost his breath, literally watching Star Wars trailer.
Always be with you. No one's ever really gone.
How do they make this more and more epic every time? How do they make this more and more epic every time?
Okay. So what's really funny about this is, and I think really it captures what I'm trying to talk about, is there's a the third comment right here. I'm sure if you guys can see this, it says, "Dude showed more emotion in 2 minutes than my dad did in 26 years." But that's part of, again, what I'm getting at with this betatization. And why is it? Again, my dad was a very stoic figure. I think I've seen my dad cry once in his entire life, and he's very stoic, whether it be pain, whether it be, serious sadness and loss. And he recently got his testosterone levels done, and I was surprised at 70 years old, he has T levels that are comparable to men my age. And so I was thinking about, again, this betatization process, this betatheism. Look at this man. How much testosterone you have. And again, he showed more emotion in 2 minutes than my dad did in 26 years. Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. And so then you just look at articles like this, Modern Masculinity in Crisis, the Rise of the Beta Male. And we can read this full thing here in a few. We'll just continue on with the focus on the superhero movies. But this is a really good article, and here I'll share it with you. I'll read this towards the end here, so I'm going to try to move through some of this other content. But this is a pretty good article written by a Christian man talking about the loss of traditional masculinity and the promotion of the beta male. And so we can go right here as, why are modern men losing their testosterone? And we're not going to go through this whole thing. It's fairly straightforward. But several studies have confirmed that testosterone counts in men are lower than what they used to be a few decades ago. While most men still have perfectly healthy testosterone, it's not healthy at all. But that's part of the betatization. Again, if you remember my buddy Dr. Michael Moeller, again, congratulations to him, just got baptized. But he has his own men's clinic there in the Laguna region of Orange County, and he does a lot of TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. And it's astonishing how low young men's testosterone levels are. As he said in the video that I did with him on testosterone, a 60-year-old man in the 1980s had a higher testosterone level at 60 years old in the 80s than a 25-year-old, somebody in their prime. It was in 2019. So young men in their prime, on average, are having lower testosterone levels than 60-year-old men in the 80s. Serious problem here. And so we don't need to go into this article too much, but it talks about how actually it promotes the new understanding of masculinity, because you'll see it here in the opening. Burt Reynolds with that impressive mustache, but talking about Frank Sinatra's swagger and John Wayne quiet confidence, but then Frank Sinatra had a violent temper, and John Wayne was a racist, and Burt Reynolds was a womanizer. And he equates this to sort of traditional masculinity and all this stuff, and higher testosterone levels, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, what is interesting, though, is when we get over here to this Guardian article, and here I'll share this with you guys. Everybody knows that Alan Moore is a very prominent and famous comic book writer. He's also openly a magician. And he'll tell you that. He has multiple videos online talking about being a magician. But he came out with a very controversial statement within these communities that he said, is it really okay for adults to superhero worship Alan Moore's comics? Alan Moore says it's a cultural catastrophe. Cultural catastrophe. For the last century's ephemera to be taking over our own era. But should adults even be reading comics to begin with? Well, according to Alan Moore, it's a cultural catastrophe for adults to embrace superheroes as serious art. They were created for children. But if it's a cultural catastrophe, the author asks, that adults invest energy in Batman, what about the fact that adults read comics at all? And so, unfortunately, the author here is in the line of supporting reading comics and being part of all that stuff. But he recognizes that as late as the 1970s, this was considered a mark of illiteracy. and mental regression. Oh, wait, you're telling me that the adult reading of comic books was considered a form of mental regression. Interesting. Think about shows like The Big Bang Theory. You see these absolutely neotenized individuals. Oh, but he's a quantum physicist. He has a PhD. Well, again, we already know that the education system, I'm in it, I can tell you, it's absolutely neotenizing. It's absolutely effeminate, and it doesn't mature men. In fact, the entire academic structure does not want you to be masculine in any sort of traditional way or have traditional values. And so you look at The Big Bang Theory, what do? They go to the comic book store. They watch video, they play video games and watch like superhero movies, and then they go and they do their quantum physics and they talk again. Well, you see, that is the betatization. That is the process. That is the entity. That is the man that's being constructed. And then you have the overly sexualized, the blonde woman. I don't watch that show, but she lives like across the apartment complex or something, across the hallway. And so then she's overly sexual. She's right. She kind of represents the modern woman then. Has to work, has to make money, struggling to make ends meet, very sexual, but very promiscuous, that type of thing. And so you see right there in The Big Bang Theory, the encapsulation of really what I'm trying to get at here. But I know, the author says, because in one of the Doctor Who novelizations I was reading avidly in those days, a villain's henchman is characterized as an idiot because he reads comics rather than proper books. And in a way, I think there's really something there. I was speaking with, Claire's father, Richard. Shout out to Claire and Richard. And we were talking about... we weren't talking about Marshall McLuhan, but really what we were talking about were hot mediums. And he was talking about the radio and how you had to really listen to the radio and the stories and different dramas that were on the radio and dramatic actors that really wanted to do various stories or play various roles on the radio. And he was talking about how it forced you to create mental images in your mind that actually were more vivid than when you just watch the boob tube, when you just watch TV and they give you the images. It's a sort of numbing effect. And that's what I really think is true. We're losing our imagination through the visual graphics. I know, it's kind of an oxymoron, but I think there might be something there. In the absence of hot mediums like reading and the radio, where it forces you, it's a hot medium of information transfer, as McLuhan would talk about, and then it forces you to construct the visuals in your own imagination, in your own mind. In a way, people can't do that anymore. That's part of the illiteracy. And so people need the image made for them, which then allows them, one, to be dumbed down and also way more susceptible to programming because they don't even create their own images anymore. And so then on a variety of fronts, from the ambitious graphic novel or history or history mal, which uses the language of comics to speak of no less grave a theme than the Holocaust, the Scarabus reinvention of the Beano, that is the Viz comic, suddenly became okay for adults. Well, I'm not okay with any of it. I think everybody I know, and this might step on some toes, I'm sure it will. Everybody I know that's still like, oh, you gotta watch Rick and Morty, dude. Rick and Morty, they're always watching Family Guy or South Park or some other animated show or anime or comics. They're not men I want to exchange my life with. They're not men that I idolize. They're not men say, you know what? That dude has it going on. I need to be more like him. I need to adopt those habits and those practices. No. Many of the people I know, and I'm not saying this is true for everybody. Of course, there's exceptions to every rule. But for many of the people I know, it's a sort of neoteny. Again, it's a stunting of maturation. You're like, why are you 30 years old and you're still watching cartoons? Why is that consuming 2 hours of your day? Why, when you relax, do you have to watch animation? What is going on here? It's a failure to take on responsibilities, a failure to grow up, which is why then they believe and they support collectivistic ideologies and political ideologies way more fervently, because they want daddy to give them the UBI. They want daddy to give them their health care. They want daddy to do everything. That's the government. That's the system. That's the beast. That collectivizing process where they actually are losing their individuality, they are losing their personhood, and they're losing their masculinity because they're taking away all the opportunity for responsibility. You see it with, again, bearing children. You see it with what they're doing right now with the economy. They're trying to take away jobs. They're trying to take away men's ability to create money to provide for a family. They're literally trying to create a formula shortage so that babies die and suffer. This is the Great Reset. It's the Great Extermination. And the number one culprit, or at least the number one, I would say culprit and target, is the lack of masculinity. So weak men allow this thing to persist, and then the whole persisting of this thing becomes a stronger and stronger machine to make men more effeminate and men more weak. And we see this with, again, the Star Wars, the superheroes, the Funko Pops, the toys. I was in California. This was in the Irvine, what is it, the Super Center Mall, or there's like the mall there. It's the Supreme Center or something like that. I'm going through Target. I'm trying to get some stuff. I was looking for like a portable iron. I needed to make sure my shirts are nice. And I walk by an aisle, and it's like the Legos aisle. And I see two grown men. I kid you not. They both had to be at least late 20s. They looked like they were in their 30s. And they're looking at Lego sets, and he was talking about which ones he's already done and have. And then I was walking by, and he went into another one. He's like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to call the manufacturer. Something was wrong with it, or something. One of the pieces didn't work." And I'm thinking, dude, what are you doing building Legos at 30-some years old? Why are you in Target with your buddy talking about Legos? Not that men can't do Legos. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm not trying to put that down, but I'm trying to point out this neotenizing, this betatization, the betatheism, this force in society that's keeping men betas. They're weak as hell. They're weak. Us men, we are weak to our emotions. We're weak to our desires. Most of us are physically weak, emotionally weak. I mean, just like the guy we watching the Star Wars trailer. He's literally crying over a minute and a half trailer of Star Wars with the female protagonist who takes on the big bad dark side. What is going on? What world are we living in? And so we're not going to continue with this. But anyways, the point that I wanted to make with this article is that Alan Moore himself thinks that it's a cultural catastrophe that adults are taking seriously and are inundated with comics and comic book. And he is considered one of the greatest comic authors and creators of all time. Unreal. Again, he created The Watchmen. And so then this article I found, America is Eternal. And this is a guy, and ironically enough, he does start it out pretty good, quoting a little something I'm sure you guys will pick up here. I'll just read it, and then you guys can pick up a little Hubbard here. In 1948, a man addressed a science fiction convention and said the following: "Writing for a penny a word is ridiculous. If a man really wants to make $1 million, the best way would be to start his own religion." 2 years later, that Pulp Fiction writer wrote a book called Dianetics, and thus a religion was born. I don't know about Scientology. If you don't know about Scientology, the cult believes that 75 million years ago, Xenu, an alien ruler of a galactic confederacy, brought billions of people to Earth in a spaceship resembling Douglas DC-8 airliners, stacked them around volcanoes, and detonated hydrogen bombs in the volcanoes. The Thetans then clustered together, stuck to the bodies of the living, and continue to do so today. That is one of the basic tenets of Scientology. And so then he goes on to talk about how he's really in favor of comics and comic book heroes becoming the new gods. And they're all over the place. So, for all of us, it's just a matter before humans start anthropomorphizing them. Just as the Romans had Jupiter and the Greeks had Zeus, and the deities of the future coexist, or will be a particular type of gods reign supreme. So he looks at the detective comics, the DC, the characters in the detective comics are by far the easiest. They are gods in every sense. They reside in a watchtower overlooking Earth. They have powers beyond any mortal man, and yet live among humans to love, to hunt, and to struggle with the same issues we suffer through. But when they are in their suits, when they don their cape or cowl or powerful ring, they are super. They are created gods. They are iconic even in their worst. Superman is clearly Zeus. Wonder Woman is quite literally the god of war. Seriously, go read Wonder Woman. And Batman is Hades. So how do we relate to them? For gods must be relatable. Even the omnipotent. One of the crowd favorite today has his moments of mercy, rage, and compassion depending on which book. Okay, this guy's very anti-Christian. That's why I'm not reading the whole article. It's lower IQ, but I wanted to read somebody's words who actually wants to venerate these superheroes. And so where folks just wonder why Superman doesn't just do away with Clark Kent and just be Superman the whole time, what people don't realize is that Clark Kent is who Superman looks up to. Clark is Superman's deity, the idea of what a good person can be. Marvel Comics has their superheroes. They have comics about actual gods, but their characters do one thing better than DC does. Marvel makes humanity super. And the 616, I look it up here. I'm not even sure what the 616 is. Like Hercules, Achilles, and Perseus, Spider-Man, Captain America, and the Hulk are humans gifted with the power of the gods. These characters are not worshipped. They are thanked. They live in our world. They suffer through the same turmoils that we do. Spider-Man goes home to his aunt after a day of being Spidey. Captain America lives in Brooklyn. And the X-Men go to school! ! Guys, this guy is getting excited about worshiping Marvel superheroes when literally that doesn't even compare to what Christ is and what Christ as a superhero is and what it represents. And he's excited because Spidey goes home to his aunt after he's Spider-Man. Oh my gosh. But when they are super, they take their human frailties and they use them to make themselves be better. Tony Stark's alcoholism. Bruce Banner's rage. Wolverine's Canadian. Oh, I'm kidding. Ha ha ha. This isn't their kryptonite. This is the burdens they overcome. The same ones we do. Oh, yeah. Kind of like Christ and God. So anyways, then he goes on to promoting the idea that we should be accepting to realizing that mythology is just myths. They're just myths about things, and therefore modern day 21st century mythology are superheroes, and we should worship the superheroes. But when you look at it, they're not new, right? So here's some list, of some of these superhero. We got Thor, a Norse god of thunder and lightning. We got Loki, of course, a Norse god of mischief. He's the trickster character. How about Hercules? He's in the comics. Greek and Roman god of strength. How about Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? Hero, demigod of Sumeria, similar to the story of Noah. Aphrodite and Venus, the goddess of love. All the Marvel. This is in Marvel. So you see, they're literally taking ancient pagan gods and creating superheroes. And that the superhero genre is literally, that's Ares, it's literally 21st century paganism. It's 21st century paganism. Odin, the Norse Allfather. Bast, the Egyptian goddess of cats here. This is in the Wakandan panther goddess. This is a Marvel DC. Hela, goddess of death, Marvel. Phobos, Greek Roman god of fear, Marvel. Balder, Nordic god of light and purity, Marvel. Zeus, Jupiter, Greek Roman god of thunder and lightning, and both in Marvel and DC comics. So the list just goes on and on and on. We can see this as a continual thing. These ancient pagan gods we see our society becoming paganized through the values, the human sacrifice, the abortion, the sexual values, the anti-family structures. It goes on and on and on. The illiteracy. We are moving away from a Christian-oriented, logos-oriented world and moving into a sort of feminized pagan one world structure, and getting young men to venerate these superheroes as sort of false entities that are really leading people into a 21st century pagan pantheon. That when you ask the beta, who's all about the Marvel, what's the most masculine entity you can think of? And it'd be like Iron Man or Superman or whatever. I don't even know which DC, what's Marvel, but you get my point. And so this is a whole article, then, The Psychology of Comic Books, Why We Worship Superheroes. And it's about how superheroes, here, I'll just read a little bit here. Who's your favorite superhero? Who would win in a fight between Batman and Superman? What about the Avengers and the X-Men? The interest in superheroes in comic books is increasing. And with the 2012 film, The Avengers is raking a worldwide box office income of over USD 1.5 billion. It's not even close. Way more than that now. The Avengers Endgame is almost 3 billion. This was according to Today. This is a Wikipedia article. The list of highest grossing superhero films. You see the Avengers and the Avengers War. Just between those two, you almost have $5 billion. $5 billion. Look, just in those two Avengers. Then you have Spider-Man, No Way Home, almost $2 billion. That was in 2021. I mean, it's unreal. Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. Again, getting you to believe in a relative, infinite, no beginning, no end universe. We have the multiverse, right? Well, now we have Doctor Strange in the multiverse. This is a 2022. It already has 909 million. It's definitely going to break $1 billion. It's definitely going to gross over $1 billion. Unreal. Absolutely unreal how much these movies are making. And you can just go down the list. I mean, almost none of these, the top 50, none of them are flops. All of these would be considered very successful movies in their own right with how much money they garner. Why are they getting so much money? How is this happening? There was one article that I wanted to, here we go. So, superhero movie genre analysis. The superhero movie genre is now the dominant genre in the entertainment industry. From a 1% market share in 1998, the superhero movie genre grew to a 20% market share in 2018, and it's bigger than that now. The two biggest movies in 2021 and 22 are both superhero movies. Marvel Studios, now owned by Disney, is the undisputed leader in the genre, earning over $22 billion at the global box office in about 12 years since the release of Iron Man in 2008. 22 billion. And again, this article is from March of 2021. So that's not even including this Spider-Man No Way Home. That's not even including this new one, Doctor Strange. That's not even including the new Batman, or I guess that's DC, so they don't own that one, but unreal. It's absolutely unreal. Even Warner Brothers Studios, which controls the rights to the DC comic superhero, has managed billion-dollar earnings with recent movies like The Joker and Aquaman, despite its relative failure to establish an interconnected shared universe like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The failure stemmed from the 2017 Justice League fiasco, where chronic management negligence on the part of Warner Brothers crushed any hope for a commercially successful DC extended universe. Yada yada. Okay, we don't need to get into the details of any of that stuff, but I mean, how is it? Again, look at the old Superman. Like, how is it that these superheroes that existed in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, they didn't occupy this prominence, but in the 21st century, they dominate. They dominate because God really is dead for most people. For millennials and Gen Zers, I'm sorry. with Gen Zers, that they're looking to these superhero movies for ultimate value, for transcendent, like the awe effect, to be awed and wowed. They are looking to these movies. So, historically speaking, we can take a look. The Glassglow. So this is the beginning of the whole comic book. The first published, the Glassglow Looking Glass, was in 1825. It was a sort of comic strip, but it was just talking about local events. And then it was not until almost a century later that the term superhero was first used in the 1917 and featured heavily the golden age of comic books during the 1930s. It is acknowledged that the current modern age of comics is represented by a set of comparatively darker and more psychologically complex characters, an increase in the popularity of comics, and the commercialization of the industry. So then he goes on to talk about how, in a way, they've been propaganda figures. So certain superheroes, like in World War II, prompted Marvel's famous Hitler punching Captain America. And with the coming of the War on Terror following September 11th, Captain America dealt with government oversight, akin to current issues of government surveillance or U.S. foreign policy. So isn't it interesting that, again, the rulers that be, the DOJ, we all know who's pulling strings from behind, that they use Captain America to talk about government oversight. I mean, clearly that's referencing the Patriot Act on September 11th. So the Patriot Act, we've all become terrorists and they can spy on us. What do? Well, we'll have a fake superhero. We'll have a Marvel superhero. We'll have him act like he's protecting the American people. And that way it will pacify people. Because, well, you don't have to do anything. Captain America will do it. Somebody will do it. Somebody will take power. Somebody will fight back against those evil bureaucrats. Who? It's us. And so it's a way of pacifization. It's pacifying us to allow us to be inundated with all this crap. And so DC Superman educated children about unaccounted landmines in former Yugoslavia, and technological changes in the 21st century manifested most notably in the current development of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies and TV series. So comics and the evolution of superheroes have reflected historical trends addressed by societal problems. But what about the narrow relationship between the individual, rather the wider community? Importantly, the relationship between comics and societal factors are not unidirectional, with a strong direct impact on individuals. Okay, yada, yada. Anyways, then it goes on to talk about the sort of psychological impact. I'll read this last. There is a strong relationship between comic books and superheroes and the field of psychology. The former have a long history of reflecting societal change. They're often progressive, and this challenges both children's and adults' moral development. Oh, really? So superhero movies have always challenged traditional moral structures. That within the comics, they have always been a place of progressive ideology, pushing the limits of progressivism. Again, it's just a Trojan horse. Progressivism is the progressive regression away from Christ, progressive regression away from God. Progressive regression away from a logo-centered society. That's the point of these things. They always have been. While characters are so exaggerated that they give people the opportunity to compare and contrast individual traits, they are based on us, and we feed off their images, integrating their characteristics into our own personalities, ethics, and morals. So, then he highlights that comics and these superheroes are used for people to then reevaluate themselves, compare themselves to the heroes in the comics, so that they then will, as he says, integrate their characteristics into our personalities, our ethics, and our morals. Because one of these, it talks about homosexuality and how that was brought up. This was like in the 30s. Some of these comics already had superheroes that were openly homosexual, which caused a lot of pushback at the time. But again, this is consistent with what it's all about. And so this guy right here, here's some of the, ancient pagan gods we still love, Loki, again, Zeus, all these, Hercules, all these people, Odin, are in Thor. They're in superhero cartoons. hell, the immortality, and then the immortality of entertainment. Ooh, what's that about? The fact we're still telling stories about these gods and goddesses thousands of years later after their heyday is amazing. And these particular 7 beings have a special appeal that goes beyond the norm. Maybe it's because they're powerful, or perhaps it's because we wish we could affect the world like they do. But luckiest of all is that their larger-than-life personalities and stories simply allow us a glimpse of the extremes of the life few of us ever get to experience. And so we see the entertainment, the Hollywood, these motion pictures, these are literally magical occult rituals that are taking these entities off a comic strip, putting them onto a big screen as three-dimensional figures, and getting people to, again, fall in line within their general universe. The Marvel universe, the DC universe. And then you see, like one of the articles was talking about how Catwoman and the Batman thing, was initially like what they called a lipstick lesbian, a sort of lesbian that had feminine characteristics. That was what Catwoman was supposed to be. How many people knew that? That, again, we see the progressive ideologies and agendas within a lot of these comics. So then this guy, again, major hater here on Christianity, talks about how, oh, look how good it is. Comic superheroes are the modern era's version of Greek gods. Yay! But this is my point. You see, they're literally taking, I've said this in so many articles, streams, doing different angles, different takes, different, stream topics, that we're going, the progressive regression is that we're going back to a pagan world. That is what the Great Reset is. It's a one world government that is pagan in a multitude of ways from a Christian standpoint. So he says, in this new religion, heroes speak the truth, and they model the behaviors, values, and norms of an increasingly diverse society. So why is he happy? Well, he's happy because the superhero movies are promoting and pushing forward a progressive ideology that he's very much in favor of, that he's very much in support of, and he contrasts this with that nasty little doctrine of the Trinity of Christianity. And so the Captain Marvel, guys, smash that like again if you are here. Anybody that's still here, please smash that like. Would greatly appreciate that if anybody could do that. Let's see here. Shout out to all the people over on Rockfin. Hope everybody's doing good on Rockfin. Wow, got a very nice super chat over on Rockfin by Yignui Malmsteen. No comment. Well, I'm going to get to the super chats here soon. Thank you, Yigmi, for that. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to get to the super chats here soon. So if you have a super chat, feel free to send that in. I'll be reading those just after a couple of these articles. We're going to finish up here. Smash that like if you guys are still here. The Captain Marvel is a stunning box office success. Finally, it seems a historic wrong has been arrested. Females have broken the male hegemony on physical violence and taken their rightful place in the annals of warrior gods. Aha. So we see Robert McGarvey here. Very, very important that women, they break through that glass ceiling of physical violence. Oh, it feels so good. Females aren't the only new members of the celebrated superhero club. There's Black Panther, there's Moon Girl, the totally awesome Hawk, and other minority characters. What does this inclusive superhero regime matter to so many people? Because superheroes have become the new gods, and Marvel is a new brand of religion in a secularizing post-Christian society. Oh, he's so happy about that. Oh, it's so wonderful. We're in a post-Christian society where Marvel Comics is a brand of religion. This is how dumbed down people are to even think that somehow Marvel Comics are in depth enough or on the same par with even just the world religion, the major world religion, just their metaphysics, just like their worldviews. Even if you don't like it, I mean, Christianity, it's so far more intricate, sophisticated than Marvel Comics. What? For many young people, superheroes have displaced traditional beliefs. The superhero role is similar to the ancient pagan gods they resemble. These new gods speak the truth and model the behaviors, values, and norms of an increasingly diverse 21st century society. But aren't we overstating things? After all, religions are serious institutions vital to social cohesion. In fact, religion is perhaps the only constant for Homo sapiens. It appears to be present in all cultures, ancient and modern. And so then he goes on to the metaphysical uncertainty of Christianity and the Trinity. Yeah, total misunderstanding. I don't even want to get into it. It's so dumb. And then eventually he gets out with the, it's no surprise that Christianity with its Holy Trinity lost its appeal as Western society democratized in the 20th century. Yes, democracy. It's going to save us. What's replacing it is a new set of stories and principles that are being immortalized in modern superheroes. In many ways, these new superhero gods resemble the Greek and Roman gods of yore. The Greek gods Zeus, Poseidon, Apollo, Athena, etc. of ancient mythology resembled humans not only in their form, but in their nature and emotions. More importantly, the immortal gods were not separate, but lived in an intimate contact with mortal humans. The old gods supported the development of classical democracies by reinforcing the spiritual authority and political autonomy of the individual. No need for priests. The average person had a direct connection to their gods. And again, that was one of his things, is that Christianity, what they did is they separated you from God because you had to go to church and talk to a priest to talk to God. No, Catholicism doesn't even argue that. Protestant, no. What? Huh? Ugh. Again, it's so low IQ, it's hard to even deal with. Oh yeah, the priests. Hence their unsuitability to the power-hungry emperors of later antiquity. The modern world is slowly embracing a new religion, and ironically, comic superheroes are its physical manifestation. They rise violent passions because we're reinventing the essential stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. What's the new moral code? It's about being true to the new gods and the old. The righteous use of force is back in superheroes. It's both necessary and justified. What he's talking about, it's about being true to the new gods and the old. The new gods are the superheroes. The old gods are the old pagan gods before Christianity. So again, even this guy right here, he's at a UK-based consulting firm, I guess, has a book called Futuromics, the guide of a thriving in capitalism's third wave. Well, buddy, we're in the fourth wave now. You need to catch up with Klaus. But again, you see how Christianity for him is like this stunting of progress, this terrible stain on human history. Of course, we view this the exact opposite, but he sees the comics as again, as uniting the gods of old and the new gods back. And it's, again, the righteous use of force is back. What's that? The only thing that exists is power. It's Nietzschean. It's Nietzschean to some degree, at least his interpretation of these superhero myths. Like the old gods, these mystical superheroes live intimately with us, supporting democracy. And like Christianity, they encourage human compassion, equality, diversity, and social responsibility as a noble duty. Yeah, so Christianity is only good when it promotes your leftist, progressive, social justice warrior narrative. Now, they're just like, no, the new pagan religion of the Marvel, it's just like Christianity because it encourages human compassion, equality, diversity, and social responsibility. You didn't know that? Oh my God. Okay, so anyways, I showed you the list of highest grossing superhero films. I was going to go into some of the characters, but there's really no point. You guys can do that yourselves. But anyways, this pretty much sums up. I was going to come back to this. I'll read just a little bit of this real quick, and then we'll finish up. So smash that like, guys. We're going to wrap up this stream. The modern masculinity in crisis. The rise of the beta male. Oh, gosh, no. And so the author says, I'm increasingly concerned with rising trends of male suicide, men and boys, and an extroverted male mass violence vengeance events in our world. Okay. So we're not going to go too deep, but hypothesis. We'll just read his hypothesis. As a consequence of 40 years of social change experimentation characterizing patriarchal masculinity as the root of modern society's woes, the archetypes and ideals of masculinity are systematically ostracized through the systematic and purposeful diminution and devaluation of traditional male roles in every culture. Through series of punitive measures impacting the societal, educational, and vocational worth of men displaying any hints of classical masculinity, alongside rampant deconstructionist portrayals of fathers as being socially inept buffoons, weak, spineless, boy men, and constant need of correction, mothering, and scorn, think Homer Simpson, or any father figure on any typical TV sitcom, modern society has ostracized and ridiculed the ideals of masculinity for both boys and men, stunting their emotional, psychic maturity and forcing them into submissive beta roles with an increasingly feminized culture. He nails it there. He absolutely nails it. Again, I'll share this link. This is a really good article if you guys want to read it later. I'm already hitting an hour and a half here. So he says, efforts to tame the traditional male behavior have left men confused as what society expects of them. These taming methods begin early in a boy's life. Due to evolutionary drives deeply entrenched within their psyche and physiology, boys possess a certain wildness, with instincts to establish social ranking between each other, whether in pairs of individual groups or every boy seeks to test another boy. These testings appear in various forms. My dad is stronger than your dad. My hero can beat up your hero, or I'm stronger than you. Every boy possesses an instinctual drive, known by evolutionary and behavioral psychologists as dominance hierarchy. The modern society has decreed it to be patriarchal, destructive, culturally constructed, and unnecessary. But does the elimination of boyhood aggression lead to balanced masculinity or its damaging and developing psyche of young boys? And isn't it funny then when you hear that, well, my hero's better than your hero. Well, Batman would beat Superman. Well, Marvel would beat DC. And then what is it? That's literally what we have. That is literally what Hollywood gives them. It's the exact same thing. And of course they're still beta males. Of course they're still neotenized. They haven't grown up. They haven't grown up. And so the dominance hierarchies are about a hierarchy of competence. And we are living in a world that is absolutely attacking competency. And so, anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap up this stream here. Guys, please smash that like. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. If you've enjoyed this stream, feel free to support with a membership or throw in a super chat. If you use a super chat, please preferably use the Streamlabs link. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that if you could. Yeah, I'm going to hop into the super chats now. So everybody, smash that like. I hope everybody enjoyed today's stream. You may disagree. That is fine. You can have your own opinion. We can still be civil. But I do think anime, I do think comics, I do think superhero movies are a neotenizing, juvenile betatization of men. And this is betatheism. This is the sort of movement into the veneration of these man-made, created faux superheroes or understandings of heroism, so that the canopy of sacredness, the point in which we look for transcendence, is wrapped up in a totally constructed Marvel universe where little 115-pound women can like dominate the Hulk or something. You know, it's retarded. It's well, you know what it is. So, guys, smash that like. Now I'm going to dive into some super chats. Let's see here. First super chat comes from the Real Cooter Brown. Shout out to the Real Cooter Brown. Throws in $12. Really appreciate that. The Real Cooter Brown says, off topic, but what are you reading right now? Any good book recommendations? Great stream so far. Boy. What am I reading right now? Well, I got these right here. And then I'm surrounded by books, actually. So I have tons of stuff right through here. Like this is one that I'm reading about. So Gods and Robots. This is about Greek mythology and like instances of men creating life and how that is associated then with potentially AI and artificial intelligence and all that stuff. So I mean, right now I'm surrounded by a series, and then I'm diving into these two right here as well. I've already read and talked about a little bit of this book, The Myth of Disenchantment, and then I'm diving into this one by Eric Davis. So, those are a few things that I'm reading. I usually have multiple things going at a time. I am not a single book person. I get books with indexes. I use books for research, so I'm always going through, figuring out what it is that I can take from it, what it is that I like. And those are probably the books that I'm working through right now, because a lot of my research focus has moved towards technology, the spirituality of technology. And so that's really what I'm trying to most of my ducks are aimed at the spirituality of technology. So anyways, thank you very much, The Real Cuda Brown. Hope you enjoyed those. Again, it's I held all those up, so just rewind if you can, and you can check out the title of those books. Next super chat comes from Jared Fetzer. Throws in $3. Shout out to Jared Fetzer and his family. Hope you're doing well, brother. He says, good to have you back. While you're in California, I was in Key West. Love the topic. If only we stopped venerating power and the glory of man, rather venerating the saints, and went self-sacrifice and spiritual Christ-like discipline, especially me. Yeah, that's something that we all need to do. You know, and would people venerate Elon Musk like they do if the movie Iron Man didn't exist? To me, good question. I mean, Elon Musk is the literal Iron Man. And that's why you see it's an archetypal he's going to save free speech. He's going to save America. No, dude, stop. He's not Tony Stark. Stop. Go away. Go back to bed. Get out of here. So, Jared, I totally agree. It's such a neotenizing force. And really, the only way we can become men, truly traditional masculine men, is by following Christ and taking his cross, putting it on our back, and suffering and moving forward in the world. So, anyways, Jared, thank you so much for the $3, brother. Next super chat comes from Thomas. Throws in $5 and says, no joke. Funko Pops are the icons of the postmodern beta males. Average evangelical Christian who would sneer at icons as, quote, pagan, wouldn't think twice about having a bunch of action figures. Good stream. Well, thank you very much, Thomas. And I totally agree. Again, you're a grown man. You should not be having toys. No more toys. No more toys. Okay, if your toys are like motorcycles and cars, fine. Those are okay adult toys. If your toys are Funko Pops and like Furbies and little action figures, bro, come on, grow up. Like, you got to put that stuff away. Give it to your kids. Give it to Goodwill. Get it out. So Thomas, I couldn't agree more, man. Thanks for the $5. He says, no joke, Funko Pops are the icons of the postmodern beta males. Average evangelical Christian who would sneer at icons as pagan wouldn't think twice about having a bunch of action figures. Good stream. Thank you so much, Thomas. Really appreciate it, brother. God bless you and yours. Meta Ninjas. Shout out to Meta Ninjas. Meta Ninjas in the house. I'll be seeing you Thursday, brother. Hope you can make it. Again, we got a premium members group, so Meta Ninjas, hope you join. He threw in $10 and says, never thought being apathetic was a beta trait. Cut deep for sure. It's all good, man. I was not trying to step on anybody's toes there, but definitely I think the whole point of being a man is to sort of choosing to push against that force of resistance, whatever that be. Could be your own body, could be your business, making money, could be your spiritual life, could be your prayer rule, could be anything. If we want to take control of our lives, we have to constantly, in a way, be suffering. We have to be pushing against the resistance so that we grow stronger. If we allow to be complacent and, as Meta Ninja said, apathetic, who's going to control? It's not going to be you and me. It's going to be somebody else. And their plan is going to cause us to be part of their plan. So we better plan on not being part of their plan by pushing against the friction, looking for the hard route, fitness, diet, prayer, your spirituality, going to church, making money, having a skill. Don't stop. I mean, really, that's the only way you're going to be fulfilled and have meaning. So Meta Ninjas, thank you so much, brother, for the support. You've been a continual supporter. Really looking forward. Again, don't forget we got our premium members group this Thursday, so I expect to see you, Meta Ninjas. I'm just kidding. If you're busy, bro, it's all good. But thank you very much, man. Next super chat comes from Taylor Stanley. Throws in $25. Thank you, Taylor Stanley, for the generous $25. I really appreciate that, man. He says, I agree with the epidemic of man children, but I also think it's important to preserve our inner child. My parents sort of, quote, did stuff for me and never authentically participated. As a new father, I'm going to be excited to play with Legos and with my son or whatever. Well, Taylor, I would totally agree with that, brother. No, bro, I think we've talked before. You got a business, bro. You make money. You're married. You have kids. Playing Legos with your son, dude, that's legit. That's cool. That's what a man should do. That's what a father should do. So, definitely cool there. The men that I was talking about in my story definitely were most likely not married. Most likely, I mean, they definitely were talking. Those Legos were not for their kids. They were not for their sons. It was for them. That's what they were getting ready to do I think it was a Friday night. So, or it was Saturday. It was a Friday or a Saturday that I was walking through Target. So, very, very different. Taylor, you're doing it, bro. Like, again, like the man children, in regards to this preserving your inner child, I think the curiosity, like when I think of preserving my inner child, I think of the curiosity, the hope, the excitement for life. To me, these are sort of youthful characteristics. You know, you don't want to be the sort of stale, old person that doesn't do anything. It's not hopeful, super cynical, senile. Like those would be a lack of that sort of inner child. So I would say Christ wants us to maintain, as you're indicating, Taylor, here, that sort of inner child, that playfulness, the curiosity, the hopefulness, the excitement. But also as men, we have to develop. And so you being married, having children, playing Legos with your son, bro, I hope I do that in the future. So I'm envying you and what you're doing. And so Taylor Stanley throws in another super chat. Thank you very much, Taylor, for $25. He says, I guess my point is that the man children who obsess over childish things are almost the male version of cat ladies. Oh, I love that. The underlying mentality behind it, like nurturing children, is godly, but it's manifested in a narcissistic way. Oh, that's a great point. Yes, the man children that are playing with Funko Pops and Furbies and collecting, Hot Wheels, they are basically the version of the cat lady. You're absolutely. I never put that together, but that is hilarious, and that's absolutely the case. I totally agree with that. I got to read that again. Taylor Stanley, thank you so much, brother, for the 2 super chats. You're already a very generous supporter. I thank you very, very much, Taylor Stanley. And the second one, he says, I guess my point is that the man children who obsess over childish things are almost the male version of cat ladies. The underlying mentality behind it, like nurturing children, is godly, but it's manifested in a narcissistic way. Exactly. The cat lady's obsessed with her own sort of desires and nurturing the cats and having cats, but no children, no people. Again, no real meaning in her life. It's narcissistic. And you're spot on. The same thing with these man children. The whole thing's hedonism. The whole interest is like doing stuff for themselves. It's hedonism. It's neoteny. It's immaturity. So, Taylor, great to super chat. Thank you so much, brother. But great comments, man. I agree with both of them 100%. And didn't mean to make it sound like I was talking about fathers playing with toys with their kids. That's not what I meant at all. But Taylor Stanley, thank you so much. And then we got a super chat from Porphyrios. Throws in $1.99. Many years to Dr. Mo. Great hanging with y'all at St. Matthew. Oh, this, I believe, is the great Marcos Ramos. Well, Marcos Ramos, it was great to see you, brother. It was great to hang out with all the clan over at St. Matthew's in Torrance. It was great to see everybody at Riverside, at St. Andrews in Riverside. It was great to see everybody at St. Barnabas in Costa Mesa. And so those three churches, I had a great time this past week. Again, meeting some ortho bros, meeting some ortho gals, meeting some ortho parents. But there's a real thriving ortho community in Southern California, that's for sure. And so despite being in the belly of the beast, literally, it's really hopeful and exciting to see how thriving young orthodoxy is in SoCal. So I think very, very cool stuff. Very cool stuff there. But Marcos Ramos, it was a pleasure to meet you as well, brother. So God bless you and yours. And then over on Rockfin, again, special shout out to Yigny Malmsteen. Throws in a $100 tip over on Rockfin. Thank you so much, Yigny Malmsteen. I really appreciate it, man. You've done that a couple times. So generous. Thank you so much. Yigny Malmsteen. Let me say thank you so much. Really appreciate it, brother. Like, that is so generous. Has no comment. No comment at all. So that's all he has. But that looks like that is all the super chats, guys. Please smash that like if you can. Again, if anybody would be interested, it's I got 2 memberships. We got a premium membership group this Thursday. We'll be doing a Zoom meeting with everybody, and then if you would like to support Church of the Eternal Logos, get a basic membership, $5 a month, not that much, cup of coffee, and you'll get access to a series of exclusive video content, of which I'm going to be doing a new video on the Northmen tomorrow. I should have that up tomorrow night, Wednesday morning. So, guys, thank you all so much. Please smash that like. I truly appreciate everybody, and it feels great to be back in the hot seat here, be back in the captain's chair, streaming, talking, doing my thing. So I will be back probably Wednesday, maybe not Wednesday, depends. Maybe it'd be Thursday morning. I'm planning on Wednesday and Friday, but we'll see. And then I'm leaving for Montana next Thursday. So I'm going to be hit with another travel. So I'm going to try to get like 5 streams out before I leave. So that's basically, let's see what I got 9 days. I got 9 days to produce at least 4 or 5 more streams. So that's my goal. I will see you probably Wednesday then. If not, I'll definitely see you Thursday or Friday. But until then, as always, guys, it's always been a pleasure. Thank you so much.